welcome seeker of hidden truths. I am Madame Luna, your guide beyond the veil, where silence breathes and shadows remember. Tonight, I will take you to a place that barely exists on the map, a place called Winter Hollow. A town carved deep into the frost of Vermont, where the snow does not melt, and where footsteps in the white can vanish as if they never were. This is the story of Eleanor Cray, a woman who stepped barefoot into the storm and was never seen again. But Winter Hollow holds more than just a disappearance. It keeps secrets. It keeps silence. And sometimes it keeps the souls who wander too close. Stay with me. Do not listen alone. And if the story chills you, leave your mark upon it, a comment below, so others know you have walked this road. Now let us begin. The Winter Hollow Case. The Winter Hollow Case. Part 1. January 4th, 1997. Blackwater County, Vermont. A snowstorm had just blanketed the mountain valley, muffling the already hushed lives of the 197 residents of Winter Hollow. When the sun rose pale and unfriendly behind the trees that morning, Eleanor Nora Cray was gone. To understand the oddity of her disappearance, you have to understand Winter Hollow. The town's name came not from a person, but from its condition, carved deep into a wooded hollow where winter arrived early and left reluctantly. The isolation was the point. Families here kept to themselves. Secrets were local currency. Nora Cray had lived alone for nearly 30 years in a house older than the Civil War. The Winchester farmhouse, as it was called, sat half a mile from the nearest neighbor and faced a thick wall of trees that children called the gray pines. The house had belonged to her parents and their parents before them, though few in town remembered the rest of the Cray family. By the time Sheriff Alan Baird received the call that Nora hadn't been seen, there was only a single visible trail of footprints outside the home barefoot, stepping out into knee-deep snow. They simply ended 20 yards from her back porch. No signs of return, no sign of anything dragging her. Just those quiet steps, dissolving into the blizzard's afterbirth. Deputies searched the area, the forest, the frozen creek bed. Not a single trace was found. And inside the house, everything was unnervingly still. A kettle had boiled dry. A record played a scratchy rendition of Debussy's Clair de Lune. Her fire was low, but not dead. A cup of tea sat cooling beside an open letter that read only, "I saw him again last night." The piano, untouched for years according to neighbors, had dust disturbed along the keys, as if someone had played a few notes. One broken ivory lay on the floor. Locals told stories after Nora vanished. One claimed to have seen a tall man in a long coat standing just inside the gray pines the night before the storm. Another swore she heard music that didn't come from any house in the hollow, but it was the letter that haunted Sheriff Baird the most. "I saw him again last night." No one knew who he was. The house had no signs of forced entry, no no fingerprints beyond Nora's, but a single smudge of soot was found on the inside of the piano lid, shaped like a handprint. There had been one other incident like this in Winter Hollow, though few remembered it. In 1958, a boy named Silas Reams vanished while sledding near the Cray property. His body was never recovered. His sled was found halfway up a tree. His footprints led from the creek up the slope, then just stopped. His mother died the following spring, raving about the man in the pines. Now, in 1997, whispers of a curse returned. The townspeople grew nervous, locked their doors earlier. Children were kept indoors, and still no sign of Nora Cray. Part 2. Sheriff Allen Baird knew Nora. Everyone did, or thought they did. He remembered how, as a boy, he delivered milk to the Winchester house on his bicycle. Nora would greet him in a shawl and house slippers, hand him a peppermint, and ask him what song he was learning on the piano. He never took lessons, but he lied every time to please her. She always smiled, never corrected him. After her disappearance, he found himself standing in her front room night after night, staring at that same piano, the old upright, with a chipped G key and fraying hammers inside. Something about it disturbed him, not because it was eerie exactly, but because it felt watched. The house was sealed off, but the sheriff had a key. He'd sit in the parlor sometimes, listening. He swore once that the piano breathed, and then came the letters. Tucked inside the piano bench were dozens of unsent pages. Letters all addressed to M.E., some read like diary entries, others like confessions. And as the dates advanced, the tone grew more fearful. He's not outside anymore. He's in the walls. The ash keeps blowing back inside. No matter how I sweep it, something is in the floorboards. I can hear it hum when I sleep. Deputy Carol Dane cataloged them. But it wasn't until a local historian identified the initials, M.E. As Margaret Elaine Cray, Nora's long-dead sister, that things began to take shape. Margaret Cray had died in 1971, drowned in a frozen creek, wearing Nora's coat. The coroner said it was an accident, but one letter, dated 2 days before Margaret's death, read, "He asked for her, said the blood needed to match." People started remembering old things, whispers, stories grandparents used to tell in hush, about the Hollow Man, not a killer, not a ghost, a presence, said to live beneath the town, in the spaces between the frost and the stone. He was never seen fully, only glimpsed in frost on windows, in the warping of wooden floorboards, in the echo under your bed when no one else is home. He came when people forgot themselves, when they stayed too long in sorrow, when the piano played without hands. He took something and left something else in return. It was nonsense, of course, except too many people started remembering. Reams, Ellsworth, Delaney, families who'd left without a trace or buried their children under snow without ever knowing what went wrong. One night, Deputy Dane drove past the Cray property and saw the upstairs window lit, though the electricity had long been shut off. The next morning, she found something etched into the frost of the back window. You hear him too now. Continues with parts 3 and 4 as you've drafted them. The exhumation of Margaret Cray, the black volcanic glass dust, the unexplained phone call from the house, the piano being moved and destroyed, the return of the hollow man, the final cassette tape with the child's voice saying, "I played the note." He lives here now. Outro, Madame Luna. And so ends the tale of Winter Hollow. But endings are only pauses. In that valley, the silence still waits. Some say the hollow hums when no one is listening. Others claim they still hear the piano playing 5 notes in the snow. If you have heard the hollow whisper tonight, do not keep it to yourself. Share your thoughts in the comments, so the others who travel here will not be alone. And if you dare walk further with me into more stories of shadows and silence, subscribe to this channel. Together, we will keep opening doors that should never be opened. Until next time, I am Madame Luna. Sleep lightly and listen closely.